So as promised, I'm going to run you through how to model this shape here, but utilizing ngons to achieve this result, but doing it in such a way that actually respects the polyflow in our subdivision surface modeling. So I'm going to move this to the side, and let's start off. We'll bring in a circle here, and let's just change the vert count to 24 is what we'll start with. So I'm just going to scale this down a little bit, and then once I've scaled, I'm just going to go Control A to apply the scale. Tap into edit mode, and let's just extrude this up a little bit, like so, and I'm just going to go Alt-N and recalculate the outside because it's all wrong. And so I'm just going to Alt-select this top loop here, Shift-S and go cursor to selected, and we're going to bring in a second circle here, but we're going to drop the vert count down from 24 to 12, and I'm just going to scale this in to roughly match up with the inside here. So this is just going to be this part of the design on the actual model over there. And while I've got this, I'm just going to go Shift-D to duplicate it, R, X, and 90, and I'm just going to drag this out to the front, and this will just represent the other intersecting cylinder that we have. I'm just going to hide it for the time being, and we'll address that in a moment. So I'm just going to select this circle, Shift-select our cylinder, Control-J, join them together. And we'll join these in just a moment. Let's just worry about modeling in the cylinder sitting at the top here. So I'm just going to drag this up. I'm just going to select this and Alt-N and recalculate the outside again, because for some reason Blender always seems to give me the wrong face normals for some reason. I'm going to go extrude and scale in just to give this a little bit of thickness, and then extrude and drag down on the Z-axis. Just a little bit, just somewhere in the middle, it doesn't really matter where, just to give it some depth. And then I'm just going to press F to fill in a big ngon face here. As you should all be aware, ngons on completely flat surfaces are fine. We can be a lot more liberal with that, and we don't need to worry too much about them. We just need to make sure that the edges are supported with quads. So I'm just going to inset to support that edge there. And then I'm just going to press J across both of these just to divide that into 4s, because we are going to cut this mesh up, because we are 3D modelers and we like to be as lazy as possible. So I'm just going to cut this down into a quarter, chuck on a mirror modifier around the X and Y axes, enable my clipping, and then we can select this bottom loop of the 12 vert circle and the outside loop here. And I'm just going to use my no, I'm not going to use the bridge operation, sorry. I'm just going to press F. We'll fill in a big nasty ngon, and once again, that's something we will address later. But once again, it's on a flat surface. We just need to worry about supporting the edges as our primary concern for sub-D modeling. So I'm just going to go Alt-H, and I'm going to bring the circle back in, and it looks like I have something left over from my previous attempt, so I'm just going to delete that. And so with this one, what I'm going to do is that this vertex here on our circle, I want to scale it so that it's sort of sitting in line with this edge here. I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm just going to go S, scale this in. It doesn't need to be exact. I'm just going to go somewhere like that. And with that, I also want to push this down a little bit. So once again, this vertex, I want to have it aligned with this edge or this flat face here. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode, deselect this vertex and reselect it. So now that vertex is our active vertex. And then in our snapping tools, I'm just going to set the snap base to active and the snap target to vertex. G, Z, so we're only moving along the Z axis, hold down Control and snap that to a vertex. And now that is nicely aligned. It's not perfect, but it's all right. We're going to run a Boolean operation and then we'll do some additional cleanup anyhow. So I'm just going to go Shift and D to duplicate this, tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to extrude and pull this back along the Y axis. And this is going to be our Boolean mesh. And you just want to make sure that it's not pulling through into here. So just make sure that it's sitting just between those areas, because we don't want to cut into that space. And so then with this extruded version selected, I'm going to Shift select the rest of our model, Control Shift and B. If you've got the Bool Tools add-on, this will bring this up. Bool Tools doesn't change the way Booleans work. It's just a speedier way of applying a Boolean modifier and being able to do it as a brush, such as here. So then you can, move that around and see if there's going to be any errors straight away without having to commit to applying everything. So it's a free add-on, which you can go and install at your own whim. So I'm just going to do that as a brush, just so I can see that it's going to work. In this case, it definitely does. So I'm just going to go Control A on the Boolean and apply it. And it looks like I might actually have to apply the mirror and then the Boolean. Yeah, because obviously the way I've set this up is not going to work. So yeah, sorry, we'll have to apply the mirror and then Annoyingly, we're going to have to cut the mesh up again. Sorry, that's my bad there. I just didn't think about the process properly. So just set that back up. Cool. All right, and we don't want any of these interior faces. So I'm just going to go through and select all of these. And I'm just going to delete those faces there. Cool. Now, this topology isn't very nice at the moment because we kind of got a handful of excess vertices. And I know I'm talking about ngons here, but only useful ngons. I don't want to use ngons that are actually going to ruin our mesh. That's not the point here. So I can see I've got two here that are pretty useless. So I'm just going to merge these into this last vertex here. So merge it last, just clean that profile up. And in this instance here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the vertex that's a part of the original mesh, and I know it's a part of the original mesh because it's connected to this edge here. And I'm going to merge this down into the circle Boolean. So merge at last. And technically, yes, that's going to cause just a little bit of distortion, but I think it will be too negligible for us to really notice. But I just don't want to distort the circular shape of our mesh here. I'd rather keep that intact as opposed to moving the circular Boolean verts around, otherwise you will notice more and more distortion, so I think that's the lesser of two evils to pick in that instance. And then here, once again, I can see that things aren't perfectly aligning, so I'm just going to merge to the original mesh in this instance. Technically, yes, it would distort the circular shape ever so slightly, but this one I don't think you're going to see as much because you're only working off of 3 points of reference, so you're not really going to be able to notice the distortion as much compared to where you've got more points of reference down here, and you will actually notice the distortion just a little bit more. And so then with that, I'm just going to go ahead, Control-J to join our circle with the rest of the mesh. And then I'm just going to select these outside verts here, and then this time I'll definitely use my bridge because that's going to work nicely. Then I'm going to grab these two verts at the top here, E, G, Y, hold down Control, and snap to that vertex there. I can fill in a face, and then I can fill in two more faces here. And now I've got a cylinder cutting into the rest of our mesh, and I just realized this isn't being mirrored properly, so I just need to delete the left-hand side verts here. And we just need to add some depth into this as well, so I'm just going to select the top and bottom vert so that we get the center point of this cylinder. Shift-S, cursor to selected. Alt select the outside edges here. Set the transform pivot point, to the 3D cursor. E to extrude. I'm going to scale this in a bit to add a little bit of depth. And then E to extrude again. Push this in on the Y. Once again, just to give some depth. F to fill in a face. I to do an inset, just to add that support to our outer edges and leave a big ngon in the middle there. Once again, same logic of a flat face. So that's the crux of it, and if we go ahead and try to subdivide this and set it to shade smooth and crank this value up to 4, as you'd expect, this looks absolutely horrible. So let's go ahead and clean it up. So let's get the easy wins out of the way first, right? And let's just go tighten up all the edges of these cylinders. So I'm going to go Control-R and just push this back into the back there. Control-R, bring this forward. And for the name of consistency, I'm just going to do this on these loops as well, so just Control-R there, and another one here. Just push that out, cool. And we can do another one on the outside here. And do one for the bottom edge. There, we'll do one for the top edge. Not too tight, and same here, we'll just bring that in. And one on the outside edge here. Cool, so now if we have a look at this, we've got nice hard edges on those cylinder pieces. Now, you might have noticed that I intentionally skipped over something here because we didn't put a support loop on the outside here, now did we? And the thing is, and as you might all be aware of, we can't actually cut a loop into here because of this ngon face here. You can't cut support loops through ngon. So no doubt there's a handful of you going, well, you know, you can't cut support loops through, mate, pack up, go home. It's a crap idea that you're trying to sell here. Not necessarily, because there are other ways that we can actually address this. So what we can do is we can go ahead and select all of these edges here, and we can actually subdivide them, right? And that will inherently cut through a support loop. So it's just a different method that we need to use. It's not Control-R, but it does give us the exact same result as doing as such. It just lets us work with tries or ngons in this case if we do it like this. And so I'm just going to go double tap G for an edge slide, E and F. And if you don't know what the E and F doing, it's aligning to an edge. So you might be able to see at the top here, there's a little blue dot on this vertex. I can't, I'll zoom in first and I'll show you, it'll be easy to see. So see here, there's a little blue dot. So when I press F, it flips the face down to the bottom. Unfortunately, now that's off my screen, so let's try this one more time. So now you can see that blue dot there. If I press F, you can now see the blue dot at the bottom. So that's just telling you which edge it's aligning to. So I'm just going to press F, so it's aligning to this top edge, and do that. Cool. So I also want to give support to this bottom edge as well here. So same thing, what we're going to do is we're going to select all these edges, we're going to subdivide, so that adds in a support loop for us, double tap G, E, and I can see that blue dot at the bottom, so I know it's going to the bottom edge, drag this down, and now we've got a nice support loop. But this isn't necessarily a great support loop. And funnily enough, even though my argument here is how we can use ngons on subdivided models, this ngon isn't a great placement in my opinion here. And let's explore why. So I'm just going to change the subdiv level to 1, turn the optimal display off, and enable it. And let's just have a look at our wires here. So let's have a look at the polyflow, right? So if you've seen the previous video, you'll understand that I've mentioned this thing about polyflow or edge flow, as you may have commonly heard about it. You can sort of think about both as the same thing, right? But if we're looking at this, it's like, so we've got a cylinder and, I think this loop here is reasonable. But this one here, it's not really defining anything for us. It just sort of just runs in and up. So we're not really defining any edges here, right? There's no point where it comes to a solid edge to say, hey, this is one shape and this is another. So what we can do is we can actually manipulate this edge here to sort of push this ngon here, and push it up to here, where we don't need as much shape definition on the cylinder, right? We still want to retain all that curved surface shading, but we want to be able to define an edge here and then sort of just push that smooth shading up to the top here. So what we can do with this edge is we can just go ahead and subdivide it. I'm going to use my knife tool and just cut in an edge between here. So now I've got quads supporting this edge. And then I'm just going to double tap G, slide this down, just about there. And then I'm just going to select this edge loop, double tap G, E, and just drag this down. And now we've got a support loop that much better conforms to the loop that it's trying to support, the edge that it's trying to support, my bad. And then if we actually look at the subdivided wires here, notice how we're actually getting a proper set of edges that define where the cylinder is sitting. And then we're pushing all the rest of the topology up into the cylinder. So we're saying, hey, we want these edges to be harder and, sort of push all the smoothing elsewhere where it's actually required. So that's looking nice. And then we need to do the same for this outer edge here. And once again, quite simple. So we can just go ahead, we can select all of these edges, we can subdivide them. And once again, we run into the problem of the fact that this edge is not going to properly respect the curvature that we have on the outside here. But a simple fix, so we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 verts on the outside here. So I'm just going to subdivide this edge here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to go to vertex select mode, use my knife tool, and I'm just going to cut all of these in. Like so, cool. And then let's select these edges, double tap G, E, and drag this out. Just all around there. And so now we've got some nice creasing going on the outside edge here as well. So it's still not perfect. It's still probably a little bit too smooth, the transitions between everything, but it's all right. We're going to keep on adding in some more support loops here and sort of working everything through. So an easy win that we can do, let's just go Control R. So we'll only add in a loop to part of this, and for the time being, that's all right. I'm just going to change this back to my bounding box. I'm going to go G, Z, and hold down Control and snap to this vertex over here, and then just use my knife tool to complete the rest of the loop. And so now we're adding in a little bit more support to that top edge there, which is nice. And then we've got a bit of a problem at the bottom here, right? So by right, you'd think, well, we sort of need to add another edge down to the bottom here. The only problem with that is that if we add more edges into a cylinder, right, which needs to have even distribution of edges and faces across it to create that smooth profile, we're going to inherently break the shading of the cylinder here, right? So we don't want to do that. What we're going to do instead is very similar to what we just did above. So I'm going to go Control R, just going to drag this down to around here or something. Actually, if we wanted to make this just a little bit more exact, let's select this inside edge and let's subdivide it. And then I'm going to use my knife tool with K, click C to do a straight cut and Z to cut through the mesh, and just do that. And so now we've added in the loop that we need here. And so we've got two options here, and I'll run you through both because there is an all-quad solution to this area. But in this instance, I do believe the ngons will actually work better, and I'll run you through it, but you're more than welcome to go with just about either or. Once again, this is not an argument to say, hey, don't use quad-based modeling. It's once again showing you how you can use ngons alongside quad-based modeling so that they can complement one another and not really fight with one another, so to speak. So let's do the all quad-based solution first. So we can use our knife tool and we can cut this out to here, and then we can cut this up to here, and we can just dissolve this middle edge. So you'll notice, like, we've got all quads, and we've got a nice sort of support loop going around the outside of the cylinder here. But once again, let's just go ahead and turn our subdiv on and turn our wires on. Now, this actually is fine, and even if I turn the wires off and bring this up to 4, you know, we're not breaking the smoothing of the cylinder, and it actually all looks quite nice. But my only thing with this is just where we've placed the pole. So once again, if I just bring the wires in. So I've got the pole all the way out here, right, which is sort of in a more noticeable area of the cylinder's curvature. In this instance, it's not actually causing us any issues or anything of the sort, so it's fine. We can go with this solution. But I'm just going to show you the ngon solution as well, and sort of how it repositions where this pole is, and kind of makes it handy to tuck it away, just in case it was causing you any distortions or issues on your model, of how you could sort of hide this pole a little bit better. And it's a really simple solution, in all honesty. It's literally just dissolving this edge here. So then we get this massive ngon, which I've got no doubt most of you won't like, but it does work. And you can see that here, and it's repositioned the pole on the inside edge here. So it's not sticking so far out, not sticking so far out here, sorry. And you can see it's sort of tightened up where the support loop is being added in. So let's just go ahead and I'll just switch between these. So I'll just turn my overlays off. I'll just put the cage on. So we can have this setup here, which is all quad-based, and we've got the pole out here, or we can dissolve it, and notice how we're sort of getting more of that smooth curvature running through the cylinder, and then we're only really terminating to a pole where we need to, just around the support loop here. So, as I said, both are viable, but it just shows a good instance of how using ngons just changes the flow of your topology, right? Which is the one thing I'm trying to have you all keep in mind. So I'm going to run with the ngon solution here, just because obviously that's the point of this video, showing ngon solutions to things. But once again, you are more than welcome to use a quad-based solution. And sorry, I probably haven't shown that with the ngon yet, so let's just crank this up to 4. And you can see, as we pan around, we are still getting very nice shading. I'm also just going to drag everything up a little bit, because I kind of feel like my proportions on this are wrong compared to the original one I did. Not that it really matters, but I'm going to drag that up a bit. Just looked a little bit too stubbed. Cool. All right, so now we just sort of need to address just creasing up this edge a little bit more here, and then we're all good to call it quits. So let's go ahead and select both of these inner edges here, and we'll just subdivide those, and this will be our support loop. So we can just double tap G, slide this in, actually just for the name of consistency. No, I don't need to do E and F because this doesn't actually have another edge to slide to, so just drag that one in there, and I'm just actually going to cut this ngon into 2 here. It doesn't really change anything, I just think it sort of neatens things up a little bit there for us. And so if we look at this, we're starting to get a little bit more creasing on this edge here, but we definitely need another support loop on the other side to make this properly work. So what I want to do is I'm just going to go select 1, 2, 3, 4 edges here, and we're going to subdivide. Now don't worry, I know at the moment that if we were to leave this, it would distort the shading and the smoothing on our cylinder, because as I said before, we've added in an extra edge to everything, so it's not going to shade properly. It's going to distort things, but don't worry, we are going to clean this up. So we can just alt select this, I'm going to double tap G and slide this down. So we're making this work as a support loop, so we're starting to tighten up this area here, which we can see here. So we're getting a much nicer crease, or edge in there, sorry. And then we just sort of need to distribute how the flow topology is working at the end here, right? So at the moment, it's not really respecting how this is all flowing together, because this edge is just flowing up and into here, where realistically we need it to flow here and down into the edge that runs along the intersection point between the two cylinders, right? So very, very simple way to do this. We'll just go Control R, we'll add another loop here. So we'll just drag this in. And so you can see I'm sort of trying to aim for like squares between here, just to keep things somewhat even. And then I'm just going to use my knife tool to cut between these points, just like so. I'm going to dissolve this middle edge, so just Control X on that one there. And then I'm going to dissolve this most outer edge here, and then dissolve, oops, what's going on with my selection? And then dissolve these top edges as well. And then for the final part here, because this is a terrible, terrible ngon, and just to show you that, this is how it's resolving. I'm not advocating for ngon usage like this, because this is bad, and this does break the shading of your model. Just to show you that, that's causing a horrific amount of pinching. So once again, I'm not trying to show you bad usage of ngons, because this is definitely one, and I'll highlight that. I want to show you good usages of ngons. So all we're going to do is quite simply just grab the vertex below that, shift select the one above that, and we'll go merge at last. And sorry, I've just realized I did not mean to dissolve one of these edges. I'm just going to bring this back in, GY, hold down Control to snap that over here. And bring that down. Sorry, that's my bad. So we've ended up with more of a quad-based solution here. And once again, this is trying to reinforce this point of the fact that it's not quads versus ngons, it's how to use quads and ngons together, right? And so if we go ahead and look at this, let's just bring this down to 1 and enable our wires. So now you can see how we're getting a much nicer set of topology that's actually respecting the flow of our topology. So we can see, whoops, we can see that we've got this loop down here that's going around our cylinder. We've got another support loop that's reinforcing that, and then we've got more loops running up here to all support that point of intersection and give us nice smooth shading here. So I can just bump this up to 4. And sorry, I just want to turn off my wires. And now we're getting a nice transition between those points, and we've managed to successfully harden up all of the edges that are necessary, and also sort of keep some areas a little bit larger where they don't need to be as defined. But, you know, if you wanted to go ahead and you didn't want this area to be so bulbous in its, I don't know how you describe this, it's not as tight of an edge, right? But if you wanted to crease this up a little bit more, we can just use the same workflow that I've showed you here. So we can just go select all these, we can subdivide these edges, we can just select this loop, double tap G, E, and push this in. And then you've quite simply tightened that up so you're not getting as large or sprawling of an edge there. I kind of like it like this instead. I think it just gives a little bit more variation to the way things are looking. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully you guys found this useful and informative to like how we can use ngons on curved surfaces. We've done a nice mix here, right? We've used ngons on completely flat surfaces, and we've used ngons on curved surfaces as well. And I touched on this on the previous video, but I do just want to show you, if you were using this for like a game asset or sort of my pseudo game modeling pipeline, this will triangulate as well, because all quads and ngons will actually triangulate into triangles, right? So I'll just very quickly show you this. So let's just apply a mirror modifier, get rid of the subdiv, and let's pull in a triangulation modifier. Just going to set this to beauty. So once again, I just want to show you, we've got big ngon there, here, there, on the inside and all that. I'm just going to Control A to apply the triangulation modifier. And there are no ngons, no quads, there are only tris. And to just show you this, I'm not pulling the veil over your eyes here or anything of the sort. I'm just going to go Shift G and select similar by polygon sides. And you'll notice, if we go for the compare tool, if I try to go greater, there's nothing greater than 3 polygon sides here, and there's nothing less than 3 polygon sides here, quite obviously. So everything that was previously on the mesh, be it a triangle, ngon, or quad, has all understandably turned into triangles. So this is a totally viable means of modeling if you're doing a subdivision model, high poly, low poly workflow, and baking down to your normals. This 100% works. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, actually following along and seeing how you can actually integrate ngons into your modeling workflow. I know a lot of people still won't approve of this, and you know what, that's completely fine. If you want to model everything with quads, I'm not going to stop you. I'm just trying to show you an additional part of your modeling arsenal that you're probably not using just due to a stigma around ngons. So I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you all in the next one.